Hey guys, welcome back. It's Jim and Steve. It's February 18th, 2019. Steve, welcome again.
Hi, everybody. Happy President's Day.
Yes. To all our presidential historian fans, welcome. So, listen, there's a lot of sports to talk about, so let's get right into it. And I figured, you know what, the winter in the Northeast has been kind of crappy here, so it's spring training, right? Position players report this week. Pitchers and catchers have been in for a week. So let's get right into some baseball here.
Okay.
A couple of things. What I thought was pretty interesting, and I think it's worth mentioning because I wanted to touch base with you, Steve, on this. One of the big things that came out of spring training was that CC Sabathia is going to retire following this season. And I'm a big fan of CC Sabathia.
As
What's
am
your
I.
opinion? And, like I said, 19th season coming up.
Sounds right.
Probably going to get 3,000 strikeouts this year,
If he's healthy.
right? Probably going to retire with 200 and, let's say he wins, 12 games this year?
That's, I think, on the optimistic side, I'll peg him, let's say, 8 to 10
Okay.
is what I will say. And we had talked about him maybe several shows ago where I think he is about 241, 242 career victories. I think he's going to finish north of 250.
It's a
But I
good
think I know
milestone.
what you're leading to. Is he?
Yes.
And my answer, no.
Okay. Well, let me tell you why I think yes. And, obviously we're talking about future Hall of Fame. This guy took the ball and was a stud and a workhorse over and over again. I don't think he padded his numbers. If Don Sutton's in, this guy doesn't get in. Mussina just got in. This guy doesn't get in. What's your beef with him?
I don't have a
Not
beef.
a beef, but
No, listen.
not immediate. I'm not saying first ballot. He's not Steve Carlton. He's not
No.
Sandy Koufax. That kind of stuff.
I am, again, like we've talked about a couple times now. Hall of Fame, you have to have this criteria. Do you automatically think of him as a Hall of Famer? I love CC Sabathia. Listen, 2009 when they signed him with Teixeira and everybody else, and the Yankees won the World Series, he was the workhorse, the stud. Like you talked about earlier, CC's nothing but a professional athlete, gets the ball, and is a workhorse. I just feel his body of work falls short, in my opinion.
And that's okay. But like I said, if Mussina gets in, what does Moose have? 250? 240? Not even 250, I
Right.
don't think. Does he have 3,000 strikeouts?
And he doesn't have a ring either.
I don't. You know what? I don't want the ring to be the defining moment because
Well,
you know
I
what? If we go back to that thing, then we say maybe that's why Joe Klecko's not in. Maybe that's why Nick Tingelhoff from the Vikings isn't in because they lost Super Bowls.
Okay.
So I don't want that to be the defining factor of getting into the Hall of Fame. I'm just saying right now. I'm not saying he's a first ballot. Like I said, he's not Koufax, Carlton, and so forth. But he deserves it, and he's ultimately going to get in.
I will not be surprised if he gets in. I am, again, you're asking my opinion.
Okay.
I just feel that he falls short slightly.
Okay.
Borderline Hall of Famer, worthy of consideration, great pitcher, great Yankee, great career, and a good guy.
Yep.
Real
Great
good
guy.
guy.
Great guy.
Teammate, all these things.
They love him.
And
Yep.
I just, again, I don't want to besmirch him in any way, shape, or form.
I know you're not. I
But
know
I'm
you're not.
just, maybe my criteria to make the Hall of Fame, and I know yours is
stringent.
stringent. Good word.
So, all right. So listen, we covered that. So it's spring training and so forth, and all teams are optimistic about their chances and so forth. The Yankees look good. can't dismiss the Red Sox. They lost Kelly, and who else they lose? The one other pitcher they.
Well, they haven't re-signed Craig Kimbrell yet.
No, he's gone. Actually, somebody signed him.
Oh, so he did?
He's gone, and Kelly's gone. But other than that, they're still intact. And
They're
I don't see
loaded.
any reason to
They
bet
are-
against them.
No,
I mean,
they're loaded.
and I'm a big Alex Cora fan. I really
am
like
too.
this
He's,
kid.
he's a great manager, actually, and I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's going to be the Red Sox manager for a long period of time. But I gotta say, the Red Sox,
Got to be the favorites,
They have
certainly
to
in
be.
the American League.
they have to be the favorite to.
Even though the Yankees have, it looks like on paper, and I think Paxton's a big addition for them.
It's all about health, but the Yankees, I think, had a good off season. I just recently saw an interview with Hal Steinbrenner, and Hal actually took a little exception to that we haven't spent any money in the off season. The Yankees now are above the tax threshold. Okay, they made some good signings. Paxton was a great trade to get. I think this DJ LeMahieu signing was outstanding
Okay.
for depth in the infield. Didi Gregorius is
He'll come back. He'll be
he's
healthy.
unfortunately hurt.
He'll come
He'll be
back.
back. So Torres most likely slides to shortstop. They
No,
need,
they got Tulowitzki now. He's going to fill that
talk
spot
about
for
him.
the time.
let's talk about him.
Look, he was one of the best players in the league, but he's been hurt
For about a 5-year period. And I'm a fan of him. Don't get me wrong. I think the Yankees taking a flyer on him is
It's kind of like a Neil Walker kind of guy, you
I
know.
think Tulowitzki, if he's healthy, and here's the other thing, he was a huge Derek Jeter fan, like big, like role model thing. And Tulowitzki wants to be a Yankee. And there's nothing wrong with taking a flyer on him for infield depth. And listen,
agree.
I think it's a positive that he's on this team. Is he going to start? I can't say that right now, but he provides great depth.
I think he starts on opening day.
Right.
We'll see.
Well, the elephant in the room is what's Gary Sanchez going to do.
You just beat me to it because he's got to start performing. This guy. I mean, everyone says he's as good a hitter as Judge. No, he's not even in the same category. He's got a lot of power, but he's got to get his mind in the game because he was a lazy catcher.
He's
last
a dog. For me, he's a dog.
Year. Well, that's that. I was being kind by saying lazy catcher.
I'm calling him out. All right, from the pass balls, which are so many, I can't
Led
even
the league.
count.
Led the
Led
league.
the league.
And not hustling at first base,
Right.
which is why my whole thing with Machado, which I don't want a guy that
But
doesn't
the thing
hustle.
about
for-
Gary Sanchez is it's his demeanor, so I kind of give him a pass on that. I don't begrudge him so much that his body demeanor. That's just who he is.
Yeah,
but
but run
let's
to
be
first
real.
base, though.
He needs to step up. He needs to come in shape first and foremost, right? And he's really going to have a big bounce back year for the Yankees because otherwise they're going to get rid of him because he's under contract at that $600 minimum deal, and somebody will take him eventually.
Sure.
But I know the Yankees had last draft. We drafted 2 catchers in the first 2 picks, so they're stocking the system for that. So it's important that Gary Sanchez comes back very, very strong this year, and that really will help the Yankees.
And
But
they-
listen, they were a 100-win team last year,
Yep.
and I think they've improved themselves. However, to our original point, I don't think the Red Sox really have diminished themselves, and
No.
I think they're still the
Team to beat.
odds-on favorite, and I wouldn't be surprised if they have another. I'm not going to say they're going to win 108 or whatever they won, but I can see the Red Sox just,
And in the National League, like I said, I mean, I think the Dodgers and Astros are still the two same teams to beat.
Probably.
Although the Brewers seem to
no, it's not
making some strides. I'd like to see the Brewers.
No, they had a good year, and they have a good foundation, and they
And the
are-
Dodgers unloaded Puig, which I think he was kind of, although he's good, but I don't think he ever lived up to the potential. He's kind of like a Cespedes kind of guy. He's
Sure.
always mouthing off about how good he is, and and so forth. So
Let him be good somewhere else. That was the Dodgers' train of thought.
Yeah.
They had enough of him. They seen enough of him. I don't think he produced to the level of their expectation. And, you know, he gets a fresh start somewhere else, and we'll see if he turns into, you know, a perennial all-star.
yeah. So look, you know, as far as signings go, the Yankees locked up Severino for a while. I think he's
It's a
the
great
real
move.
deal.
Great move.
And now
Especially in today's money. 4 years, I think it maxes out at 52. That's a good deal for the Yankees.
Yeah, and the Mets, you know, they're gonna have to pony up if they want to keep DeGrom.
So let's
because,
talk
you know,
about the New York Mets. I'm sure we have a lot of Met fans out
I don't
there.
know why they seem so optimistic. Like they made so many changes during the off season. I don't see it on paper.
Well, they had a terrible year last year. They can only go up this year.
But they didn't fix the hole at catcher, right? I mean,
I think, well, you know, let's talk about the Mets. So, you know, Sandy Alderson got sick, and I think it was time for Sandy to pack it in there. I think that was getting a bit stale. This Brody Van Wagenen, or whatever you pronounce his last name,
That's how you
something along
pronounce
those
it.
lines.
that's how you pronounce it.
There's a former agent. I think this guy's in tune with today's ball player. This, you know, listen, the elephant in the room for them is DeGrom. Are they going to give him the money that he deserves? And you know what? Of any pitcher out there, he's a top 3 pitcher right now.
I agree. I touted them all last year. I was a
And
big
it's
fan
up
of
to the
his.
Wilpons to pony up, and they're going to have to pony up because this guy is a hell of a pitcher.
And they're going to have to pony up for this kid Wheeler, who's got that kind of potential too. I think Zach Wheeler's a pretty.
Oh, it's a time.
Pretty promising guy.
Zach Wheeler's going to step up. He needs to step up now. I mean, they made the trade for him probably 4 or 5 years now.
All right, so they got him on the hook for this
yeah,
year
don't
and
get me
probably
wrong, he had
next.
some arm trouble, but he had a bounce back year coming off his injury, and I think the Mets. You have to go in to the season counting on this guy.
But I just haven't
Who-
seen the Mets on paper improve that much to the point where they're so optimistic. You know what? They signed what? Entra Maria yesterday or something?
Yeah,
for,
but as a role player, I think the Mets have improved themselves. Let's put it that way.
not enough to compete for.
I'm
that kind
predicting
of thing.
right now. I don't foresee them being a playoff team, but I think the Mets are they're trending upward, and I think with some other moves that they want to make, the Mets will be relevant again in a short period of time.
Well, like I said, it's early in the season right now. It's just starting preseason. You
Right.
never know what's going to happen. But like I said, I think we're both on the same page that I think the Yankees and the Red Sox will fight it out for 100 and some odd wins and,
Yeah.
and then play each other again in the postseason.
Minimum 95, depending on
Yep.
injuries. But yeah, I think it's safe to say Red Sox Yankees will be the rivalry in the AL East, and the teams that we just talked about on the NL side, the
Yep.
Astros, Dodgers, Brewers. I think those are the top 3.
Good stuff. So we'll be following Major League Baseball as the shows go on and so forth. So looking forward to it. It's always good when baseball season's right around the corner. So let's move on. Let's touch base on some basketball. And you know, it's hard for me to even bring this up like the NBA All-Star Game means anything. It was ridiculous. To be honest, yes, these are the best players in the world, and it's exciting for an NBA diehard fan. But for me, I just don't see the whole luster here. I just don't get it. And I looked at, I watched some of the All-Star Game last night. They shot 167 three-point shots or something, 160 something.
Right.
Made 60. It's
Well, I think they
33%.
scored 168 points on X amount of 3-pointers that were so high and attempts.
But I just don't get it. It's a big show. It's a marketing blitz for the NBA, but it to me means nothing. Almost most of the Pro Bowl means nothing. The only one that still has a little excitement is the Major League Baseball for me. The All-Star Game. I kind of like that more, but I don't see much with the NBA. So let's, we're moving into second half of the season, and I think, obviously Durant and Golden State and so forth, they're still the favorites to take it all and so forth. But I'm pretty impressed with this kid Giannis from Milwaukee. I really am. And Toronto on the Eastern team,
No,
East side,
he's
pretty good too.
No, he's the real deal, this Giannis.
He sure is.
I think Milwaukee, because it's Milwaukee in the Midwest, and they haven't been relevant in probably 3 decades minimum.
Yep.
But he is a player. I believe they may have the best record in the East.
They do.
They hired Mike Budenholzer, who is a Popovich disciple. And, hey, coaching. This guy just walked into Milwaukee. Now, granted, he has Giannis as a foundation, and he's in first place. So they are a force to be reckoned with in the East. Toronto hasn't missed a beat. They made the trade. Listen, they got Kawhi up there.
And it's make or break for them this season because
but
he's going somewhere else.
He's one and done.
Yeah,
Let's be real. He wants to play in L.A. Whether it's the Lakers or Clippers, I think it's safe to assume Leonard is out there. However, Toronto is in the mix. Still have the Celtics with until they can figure out what they're doing. They're loaded too. But at the end of the day, let's be objective. The Western Conference in the NBA is where the marquee players are.
Yeah.
I'm going on record right now. I see a three-peat for Golden State, and
then I see it blowing up after that.
yeah.
I mean,
Well, let's
these guys are gonna
talk about
walk.
the Knicks. I mean, and their situation. So, in my opinion, and I've been talking to a few of my friends over the past week or couple weeks. So, what's the wish list for the New York Knicks? Okay, obviously they're terrible. They just had a franchise record 18-game losing streak, 17 or 18. I want to say it was 18.
It was at least 18.
Okay, they're in position, and I think the drafting has just changed by where it doesn't necessarily guarantee you the number 1 pick.
Which will be Zion, as
yeah,
we
but
know.
I think it's ping pong ball related, and in theory they should have the highest percentage. But let's just say they get a Zion Williams. Let's just assume they get the number 1.
Well, let's assume that they will, like it's going to be an Arnold Rothstein ping pong ball.
Correct. Right. So I think Zion is the consensus number 1
No
pick.
question. No question.
But let's talk wish list for the Knicks. So they got 2 max free agent spots available cap-wise. I want Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. That's just me. I think those are the 2 pieces that you get Zion Williamson, and I think you have a puncher's chance going forward and making some trades and filling in and getting
right.
role players.
All right.
That's my wish list. What do you think, Jim?
Well, listen, I mean, I think, like I said, we talked about this last week on the show, that bad basketball, 18-game losing streak in New York is not good for the NBA. So I think they're loading up, and everybody's already counting on Williamson going to the Knicks. So I think that's probably a done deal. Do I see Durant and Irving coming to New York? No, I don't think they can get both of them. I just don't know why, but I don't. Like I said, they are so far from being a contending team right now. I mean, they even waived this kid Cantner. They couldn't even trade for him. Nobody wanted him. He's a good player, actually. You can't go wrong with a 7-foot-something guy kind of thing. But yeah, you know what? With the NBA, like I said, I still think the cream of the crop, obviously, and I think we agree, is Golden State. But that'll blow apart after the season because Durant's going somewhere.
And Thompson's a free agent too.
Right. So they're going to get all the money on the planet to go somewhere.
Right.
So.
Well, let's talk about what a run it has been with Golden State. I mean, this has been a
Pretty
special
impressive.
team.
Impressive.
And it's not like, I want to say like the Heat with the Big Three, where they signed the Big Three, the LeBrons. I mean, Wade was already established in Miami, and then Bosh they got. You got to give credit to Golden State. They drafted Stephon Curry. They drafted Draymond Green.
Yep.
They drafted Klay Thompson.
Yep.
They hired Steve Kerr. They
Yep.
snatched him from Phil Jackson.
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So obviously Durant the last couple of years has been their marquee signing, and Durant got crushed for leaving OKC, but Durant is such a good ball player. So my point is, I just want to acknowledge that this run with Golden State, it's going to blow up at the end of the year.
No question
I'll
about it.
reiterate, I think they're the favorite to three-peat, but I think it's good for the NBA at that point, by where Klay Thompson can maybe land wherever he wants. Durant can pick where he wants.
And look, I mean, in the West too, you still got Portland. Portland's a pretty good team.
Sure are. This Damian Lillard for Portland is a really good ball player.
Yep.
I don't know what his contract status is. I don't know when he may or may not become a free agent. I would think Portland may want to lock him up and not let him out the door. But I'm glad you brought him up. He's a guy I've been watching that is really impressive ball player.
Me too.
I think he's a good ball player.
Me too. And Steph Curry's brother plays for Portland too.
Right.
Right. So listen, but the second half of the season's coming up. It's actually almost 3/4 of a season. I don't know why they have the NBA All-Star game so late. But there is one thing I wanted to touch base before we get off the NBA. The Hall of Fame. Again, we keep coming back to the Hall of Fame, but it's important. So
Okay.
I think the three big names that came up worthy of discussion were Chris Webber, Ben Wallace, and Paul Westphal. So let me give you my 2 cents on this. First of all, Webber,
They
nominated.
been nominated?
Yeah, they were nominated.
Ah, whew. For a minute there, I thought you
No.
were telling me they were just inducted into the Hall
No,
of
these
Fame.
are the nominees. They haven't
Okay.
been elected yet. So, first of all, Webber, you've got to be kidding me. To be putting him in the same Hall of Fame as Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain's, that's the Bob Lilly equivalent of the NFL.
I will unequivocally say I don't think of Chris Webber as a Hall of Fame.
Not at all. Great college player.
Right.
Great, but that's
Right.
not what this
You
is
can
about.
call a timeout with the best of them in a big spot.
Right,
Michigan,
even when he
North
doesn't have
Carolina,
one.
When he doesn't have one.
Ben Wallace.
No.
Let me just give me 2 seconds on Ben Wallace. Excellent player, played on some great teams, very tough player, but Hall of Fame? No. I agree with you.
One-dimensional rebounder. Period. Had a good run for maybe 3-4 years. Hall of Fame? Absolutely not. Don't even make me.
I know, but a lot of people would also say Bill Walton had 2 or 3 or 4 good years in the NBA, and he's in the Hall of Fame. He lived off his college legacy. And did he belong in the Hall of Fame in the NBA? Same thing with Jordan and those guys? Jerry West? I don't think so.
Okay.
Anyway,
Fair
the last other guy of note, which I thought warrants it, I mean, I don't know how long he's been on the bench, Paul Westphal?
Paul Westphal must be waiting going on 30 years now then.
Got to be at least 20.
Because, for our listeners and those that know Paul Westphal was an outstanding guard for the Phoenix Suns, where he really made his name. In the late 70s, I think Paul Westphal was probably
Late 70s, early
maybe
80s.
a rookie in 70. Actually, I think Paul Westphal might have been a rookie in that big series with the Celtics and Phoenix Suns. The triple overtime game, where it's one of the iconic games in NBA history. The Garfield Hurd,
Dan Issel era kind of thing.
So late 70s.
Early
Paul
80s.
Westphal,
Yep.
I'm just top of my head, probably had a 13, 14-year career.
And the only reason I
He may
bring
have
him,
a scoring title, actually, Paul Westphal.
and probably up there in the top 10 in assists too, I bet.
Yeah, a good ball
But
player.
I'm just going to say, when we talk about it, if we ultimately dismiss him, and I don't want to diminish guys like Maurice Cheeks, he got in. Doesn't Westphal deserve at least that much consideration?
Listen, I remember Paul Westphal. I was a big fan of him. We're number 44.
Wow.
He was I'm going to say Westphal probably averaged
23?
maybe more, 25, 26 for about a 2, 3, 4 year period.
Well,
But the fact that he has waited this long gives me pause then. I would have to look at his stats a little bit further.
But I think those were the three more key guys I wanted to bring up that were
Okay.
nominees, and neither one of
Or
them is a
slam
surefire.
dunks. They're no slam dunks.
No,
I
not
would
at all.
say all three are not slam.
But I'd say out of those three, if Mo Cheeks got in, then Paul Westfall's got to get in. I mean, it's a little diluted nowadays, but that's just my opinion on that. So, all right, so let's get off. Before we get off basketball, so Steve, you went to the Bergen County Jamboree. This is for our New Jersey local guys.
Yeah, North Jersey.
Great basketball.
Yep.
So Don Bosco, St. Joe's, and Bergen Catholic Ramapo
Yep.
played in the Bergen County Jamboree, which is kind of, if you're a high school basketball fan, which I got to admit, I never went to one basketball game, but our friend Kenny Backert and big St. Joe's guy.
Yep.
So St. Joe's, and I know we tout St. Joe's quite often, but they went down to Don Bosco and Bergen Catholic. So again, it's the powerhouses rule.
Right. So
What was your take on the game?
Well, first of all, I think it's a great venue for high school basketball. The Bergen County Jamboree, they hold that on the Fairleigh Dickinson University campus at the Rothman Center. It's just a well-run tournament.
Yep.
Congratulations to the 4 semifinalists. I was happy to witness that yesterday. So, of the 4 finalists, there was one non-public.
Ramapo.
Well, Ramapo was the public, and then you had your Bergen, St. Joe's, and Don Bosco. And they were all, I believe, they were all the top 4 seeds. Top of my head, I think that's correct. Bergen was just too much for Ramapo yesterday. I'd like to make a shout out though to Ramapo. I watched the week before. They beat up a 20-0 Saddle River Day squad. There's some good athletes on Ramapo. Notably, they got a 6'11 center. His name is Neil Quinn, and Neil Quinn is going to Lafayette College, and well-deservingly. Casey Hunt is another stud athlete. I thought was really, very impressive.
Is that from the Scooter Hunt family?
That is from the Hunt family. And Casey Hunt is actually, his career's coming to an end in basketball because he is getting a full ride to Mississippi State for baseball. He is a stud pitcher. I couldn't have been more impressed with his athleticism.
Cool.
And I just want to make a shout out to him. And also, it's also nice being there. You see a lot of people. I saw actually Tim Pernetti. Tim lives in Oakland. I live in Oakland. Tim is the former director of athletics for Rutgers. But I want to shout out to Tim. His son Max is I think Max is, I'm going to peg him at about 6'5". He's a junior. And Max had a real good game against Saddle River. And Max had a breakout performance. And look for Max Pernetti going forward for next year on the basketball scene. Also, I'd like to shout out to Don Bosco. Now, they beat our St. Joe's Green Knights. There was one kid in particular on Don Bosco. This kid, Victor Konopka, 6'7", lefty. And it turns out, he was the best player I've seen out there. He was the difference in Bosco beating St. Joe's. And I was happy to hear that he's signed with West Point, and he's going to go into the Army, and I can see a great career for him.
Awesome.
I'd also like to shout out to Bergen Catholic. There were 2 guys particularly on that team. There's Zach Fremantle. So Bergen, I'm going to favor, even though Don Bosco is the number 1 seed, Bergen I think is number 2. I think Bergen with this Zach Fremantle, who I think is 6'7", 6'8", and this kid Matt Zona is also a 6'7". So I think the fact that they have those 2 big kids, I think that might be a little too much for Bosco. My prediction is Bergen slightly over Bosco.
Well, I think it's pretty cool that we talk about obviously football and Bosco and Bergen and St. Joe's and so forth, but they're just as predominant in basketball and baseball. These are the same teams.
Yeah,
These
they
are
are.
great sports programs.
And then just let me finish on St. Joe's. So I was proud of our Green Knights. The Green Knights have had a bounce-back season. Coach Mike Doherty's been there forever. We know Mike going way back. Mike actually splits us. You're 81 Joes. Mike was 82, and I'm 83. But I'd like to make a shout out. I thought the most impressive player for St. Joe's was this Nizier Williams, who was their point guard. He's a junior, I believe. But the guard play on St. Joe's was really good. And I also wanted to give a shout out to one of the St. Joe's football players, this kid Smith Bilbert. Is a big presence. He's a big kid. He played hard down underneath. He had his hands full with this Konopka kid. But Smith Vilbert is signed to go to Penn State and play football, and he was a member of the Green Knights championship football team. So
good. We'll give you an update on the results of the Bergen County Jamboree. And like I said, basketball is pretty exciting in Bergen County and New Jersey altogether. So
yeah. Well-run tournament, and again, like Jim and I mentioned a week or two ago, we want to cover the North Jersey scene. We want to be, get some kids on the show and talk about North Jersey sports, because it's just a great bastion of all-around sports here.
And like I said, although we're St. Joe's guys at heart, we appreciate, and that was a good shout-out to the Bergen and Bosco guys, we appreciate talent. We appreciate the athleticism of these kids, and it doesn't matter what school it is.
No.
We're going to bring them up.
Yep.
So we'll keep you guys posted on that. So listen, a couple of real quick things before we wrap up. And I know, I don't know how many ski fans we have, but when you have somebody who dominated a sport, I think it's worth mentioning. And I'm going to bring up Lindsey Vonn, who retired, right? Okay. She's got some injuries and so forth. And I looked it up. I mean, she had quite a resume over the past almost 20 years, I think. And from a U.S. perspective, we were never really dominant. Steve and I go back and we remember Franz Klammer and Ingemar Stenmark from the '76 Olympics and so forth. And other than Ingemar Stenmark, Lindsey Vonn had just as many World Cup victories as him. Second only to Ingemar Stenmark. How impressive is that? And a gold medalist.
Shout out to her. She had a devastating injury to her knee, I think, like about 4 or 5 years ago. I think in the last Olympics she just fell short, if I'm not mistaken. But that does not diminish her career. So without question, the best women's skier representing the United States, bar none.
I mean, from the men's side of things, all I could remember is the Phil and Steve Mayer, the Mayer twins,
and Bill Johnson. Give a shout out. Bill Johnson won Olympic gold, but they're far and few between on the men's side from the skiing perspective. But Lindsey Vonn, I think when you think U.S. skiing, men's or women's, I think she is.
No question. I wanted to make sure.
I hate to say the Tiger Woods of skiing, but
let's not go there. But
it was public. Those two dated at some point, and that's not a knock. That means you're talking greatness to greatness.
No, but I think it was absolutely worth mentioning. This is a sport, and no question about it. And she was dominant from the United States perspective.
Absolutely.
And good riddance to her, and congratulations on an incredible career.
Absolutely, and I absolutely agree with that assessment.
So before we wrap up, I just wanted to touch base on something that was, one of our listeners, Kenny and I, were talking about from a PGA Golf Tour perspective. Great Genesis Open yesterday. I don't know if you watched it. Justin Thomas, J.B. Holmes down to the wire. I mean, that's the kind of golf tournament you want to see, and it was awesome.
And Riviera. Right?
At Riviera, and it was awesome. But there was one thing, kind of a black mark on the PGA, was this Matt Kuchar situation. And
I'm glad you brought that up.
And I needed to bring it up because, first of all, we've been watching Matt Kuchar since he was on what's now the Nike Tour, I think. But
you're going to have to give our audience a little.
I will, but
background on this.
But he's a very popular PGA player on tour, and he gets his coups and so forth.
I think he's got 9 career wins. I saw.
I don't know.
He's in contention, and you know him from the tournament.
But I'm not sure he even has that many. But he could. He's a perennial top 10.
Right.
And a very nice kid. But there was this whole incident. He won some tournament last year, won 1.5 million, and
In Mexico.
and paid his caddy $3,000.
All right, but the caddy, in his defense here,
Was a temporary caddy. I get
temporary caddy.
it. Regardless, though.
Oh, I get it. Listen, I'm on the caddy side 150% here.
Me too.
So, I mean, for our audience members not aware of this story, like Jim said, Kuchar wins a tournament. I think it was in the fall, October, or what have you. And he had this substitute caddy. And Kuchar's explanation is, oh, I agreed to pay him. If I came in top 50, I'll give you $2,000. If I'm in top 20, $3,000. And if I win it, $5,000. Something along those lines.
Right.
He wins 1.2 million freaking dollars.
And the
right?
normal, just so you guys know, the normal fee is 10% of the purse for the
Right.
caddy, and I get it. But what, you won 1 point some odd million dollars, and you couldn't throw this guy $50,000.
So, listen, Matt Kuchar made a statement last week defending his position, right? And I think once he realized the backlash, and rightfully so, the backlash, right?
Totally.
Was Matt, I think, so Matt, somebody from the PGA commissioner's office went in, a PR guy, sat down with them, prepared a statement. Matt, you're paying the guy $50,000, and you're going to apologize. And this will be,
And if he wants to get back in the
You'll
good
move
graces
on.
of the fans,
Right.
he's got to pony up 50
right.
grand.
So listen,
Which is what he probably should have done. And I just wanted to bring it up because, when you win that kind of money on the PGA Tour,
right.
That was the local caddy. So he gave more insight than a guy that doesn't know that course.
And I think Matt realized the PR
Good.
was.
So make good on it, Matt. That's all.
And he did. To his credit, he did. A bad week for him, bad decision. Does that mean he's a bad guy? We're not saying that.
No, but
learn from it. And bad week for you, Matt.
Yep. So listen, before we sign off here, just real quick, just want to touch base on hockey, and the reason I'm bringing this up because Ovechkin scored his 40th goal,
For the
10th time.
yes.
One of only 4 players to score more than 40 goals in 10 straight seasons.
Yes.
But who's the first person you think of when you hear about that?
Number 99, Wayne Gretzky.
Regardless of that all-time scorer, but Mike Bossy, when you think of it.
That's another one.
10 straight seasons actually 9 straight seasons of 50 goals or more.
Right.
And he scored 38 in his last year. Guys usually tail off.
Sure.
Awesome. No, but I'm happy for Ovechkin. I just wanted to bring that up. So I saw something they said, if he plays until he's 40 and continues to average this amount of goals,
He will surpass.
which is unsurmountable.
But listen, it's not. It's funny you mention that because a buddy of mine and I were talking about it during the week,
And obviously we're talking about the greatest hockey
Yes.
player of all time.
number 99, Wayne Gretzky. It's not out of the realm of possibility if you think about it, because this guy's in good shape. How old is Ovechkin? I
Gotta be
think
35 now, 34?
34. So you're telling me 6 more years?
Maybe. We'll see.
It's not crazy. I will bet against it, but it's not crazy.
But it's great to see. Like I said, he's been a gritty guy,
Good for hockey. Good for hockey.
And boy, he's got that patented shot off the wing like
All
nobody's
he does is
business.
put the puck in the net.
So-
That's what he does.
So good stuff. And like I said, before we go, we want to bring up the name. Like I said, we're going with Mono Sports with Mono and Mono. It's going to be our name going forward. We're doing all the behind the scenes production and marketing stuff. So stay with us, and you'll find us on all the social media and the YouTube and.
Right. And again, after much debate back and forth, want to keep it simple. So it's sports with Mono and Mono. And we hope, we appreciate our audience now, and we'd like to expand this and get our following. And look for us on social media too. We're in the process, like Jim said, of changing the name, and you'll be able to find us a little bit easier on the social media front. And eventually we want to build this into call-ins and emails and answer emails.
And we want to have a lot
everything
more interaction with our audience and so forth.
Absolutely.
And But we appreciate your loyalty and checking us out. We get a lot of positive feedback and so forth. And like I said, we look forward to a lot more interaction with our audience.
Absolutely.
And again, just real quick before we sign off, I'd like to also thank our sponsors who've been with us. Obviously, Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut, Harley Davidson of Utica, and Di Filippi's Bakery in Monticello, New York.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And we're also looking for more sponsors. If there's anybody out there that would like to have us advertise their show, we're open for business, and we'd love to have a conversation with you. And again, thank you for your time this week, and we look forward to the next show.
Yep.
And
Thank you very much, folks, and
Have a
we'll
great
touch
day.
base and follow up with some of the points we brought up tonight, and look forward to your feedback and continued support.
thanks, everybody.
Have a good week, guys.
Bye.